Algebra 1, Day 13. Today we're going to be talking about key features of linear functions. So what exactly does that mean? Well, that means we're just going to identify what are the features of a line. What things can we use to identify it, to talk about it, things that can be modified, things that will tell us a little bit more about what exactly the function means. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, knowing our slope, also called my letter M, and y-intercept, letter B, we can generate equations in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. We pick our points to find slope from corner to corner, starting at the y-intercept, also known as B. If we do not pick corner to corner, we will have to simplify the slope. So the good thing about that is we don't have to. As long as we can have it as a fraction, our slope is super easy to read. Okay, so first, let's go ahead and look at this line. So I see a couple of very interesting features here. First thing, my range, as well as my domain. So if I look at this, I notice that it has an arrow on both ends. If I first talk about my domain, it looks like maybe -6, but that arrow tells me negative infinity. And it looks like +2, but that arrow tells me positive infinity for my domain. So that's all real numbers. And then my range, it looks like also a -6, but that's an arrow, so negative infinity. And at the top, it looks like almost 10, but that's also an arrow. So all real numbers, every single number. That means that this line is going to continue forever and ever, and that any x value can be part of this equation. So I'm going to go ahead and identify these in a little bit different order than it's listed here, just to make this easier. So first thing, always the easiest things to point out on a graph are going to be x-intercept. And so my x-intercept is located over here at -3, 0. Remember, we always write that as x, y. My 0 is the same exact thing. Some people might ask you just for the number, so you would just say my 0 is -3. I'm also concerned with my y-intercept up here at 6, 0, 6. That is my b value. Now, how in the world do I find that tricky slope? Okay, so here's the thing. I like to make it super simple. Other people have other methods. But what I like to do is I always just look for 2 points that go exactly through the corners of the boxes. So as you can see, this one was, let me change colors here. This one was exactly in the corner of the box. This one is exactly in those 2 corners as well. So, for example, something like right here is not going through the corners of the boxes. So I wouldn't want to use that because I don't have the eye to make sure that that's exactly the value that I think it is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to count, okay? So before I go into counting, what I want to do is just write out the formula for slope. It's got lots of different forms. Some people write it in different ways. These are 2 of the ways that you'll see it. The important thing to remember is that the top number tells us about up and down, y direction. The bottom number tells us about right and left, the x direction. Some people refer to that as the rise over run, okay? So let's go ahead and start here at my x-intercept, only because it's the very furthest to the left and bottom, okay? So I always start over here on the left because it's just easier because that's how we read. So I start here and I say, all right, I'm going to look at this next point that I'm 100% certain goes through the corners. And I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it went up 6, right? Because positive is up, negative would have been down, and 1, 2, 3 in the positive x direction. So again, it went up 6, so positive 6, and 3 more in the positive x direction. So again, change in y, change in x. That little triangle is just a fancy way to say difference or change. So I got this, 6 over 3. I know that simplifies to 2, super easy. So I can say my slope is equal to 2. What's the equation of the line? Well, good news is that all I have to do is just go ahead and find my m and my b. Y equals something x b, okay? So I look at my m, that's 2. I look at my b, positive 6, and there's my equation, 2x plus 6. All right, let's do the same thing over here. Now, as we discussed before, there are positive slopes, negative slopes. There's also zero slope, undefined slope. So for this one, first thing I want to do is I want to identify those y-intercepts, x-intercepts. Those are always good points to look for. Now, every once in a while, they'll try and play games with you, and they may put it in between, so you're not really certain. But those are usually pretty good points to figure out what your slope is. Okay, so now I'm going to start way over here on my left. So I'm going to start at that y-intercept. And again, y-axis, green is going to be x-axis. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to try and get to this point. So I'm going to count the boxes. 1, 2, 3. So I went down 3, and I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 to the right in the positive direction. Now I'm going to simplify. There's my slope. So what this means is for every single down 1, I should go right 2. So let me clear this up, and let's verify that. Down 1, right 2. Okay? Down 1, right 2. And every single one of those should land on the corner. Now, of course, I use my x-intercept and my y-intercept, so we had to count a little bit more. We had to reduce. But I just wanted to make sure that I got exactly in those corners. All right, so my slope is negative 1/2. My y-intercept, let's look at that again, is located at 0, positive 3. The equation of my line, so I'm going to take my b value as well as my m value. Y equals mx plus b. So the equation of my line is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3. What's the x-intercept / 0? It looks like it's touching at 6, 6, 0. What is a 0? Also 6, 0. Remembering they can also just ask us what is a 0, and you would say 6. So just as a side note, I want you guys just to remember that all slope is it's telling us how much are we going up and down, how much are we going right and left. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be, okay? So let's continue on with our notes. So we write coordinates of an x-intercept as x-intercept, 0. And I like to write it as x sub I, just simply because it helps me remember. And the y-intercept is written as 0, y-intercept. The reason why I say 0, y-intercept is because if this is a y-intercept, we will never have another number there in that space for an x value besides 0. So to solve for an x-intercept, we substitute 0 where we see y. So what does that mean? I'm taking this exact point and I'm plugging it into the equation. So all my x's will change into 0. All of my y's change into y-intercept. Same exact thing if I was solving for my y-intercept. I would substitute 0 everywhere that I see an x. Now, linear equations are really great for this because guess what? Y-intercept is just my b value. I really don't even have to plug it in, but I'm going to do that just to demonstrate how this happens, okay? So I already know just by looking at this that this positive 6 here is going to be my y-intercept. So I can already tell you it's that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So first I'm going to look for my y-intercept, which is going to be located at this point. I'm going to take this point and plug it into the equation. Everywhere I see an x, I turn it into a 0. Everywhere I see a y, I turn it into a y sub I. Okay, so now I have that. Let's go ahead and start simplifying and reducing. 2 times 0, those guys just cancel out. Y-intercept is equal to 6, which means my y-intercept is located at 0, 6. Exactly where I predicted. Now, what about this x-intercept? Well, that one can be a little bit more tricky, depending on what form of the equation we're given. And it looks like this, x-intercept, 0. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my equation, I'm going to rewrite it, plugging in those values. 0 equals 2x-intercept plus 6. Okay, so I got this. Now I need to go ahead and solve for my x-intercept, that guy. So that means I need to get rid of that 6 and that 2. Remember, we always get rid of what is not attached to the x first. Exciting move, great divide. Comes up every single time. So I'm going to move my 6 over. That's my exciting move. And I'm going to do my great divide. I'm going to divide by the number touching my x, my coefficient. And I get an x-intercept of -3. That means that my x-intercept is located at -3, 0. All right, let's do the same thing here. Now, the interesting thing about standard form, this guy here, ax plus by equals c, is that this gives us a slightly different look at things. And you'll kind of notice a pattern here. Same way that you see a pattern here, that every time I have y equals mx plus b, that last number at the very end is going to be my y-intercept. In the same way, here, every single time, my y-intercept is going to be c divided by b. My x-intercept is going to be c divided by a. Okay? And my slope is going to be -a divided by b. Okay. So we're not going to worry about that slope for now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, let's find this x-intercept, this guy. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to change it to xi. Everywhere I see a y, I'm going to change it to a 0. 2 times my x-intercept minus 3 times 0 equals 6. Okay, so these guys just cancel out. That's 0, 2, x-intercept is equal to 6. I'm going to divide by 2. X-intercept equals 3. So that means the point is located there. Okay, so I got my x-intercept. Noticing that my x-intercept, 3, is simply equal to my c value divided by my a value. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, so it's just a good way to be able to check yourself really quickly. Y-intercept, 0, y-intercept. All right, let's plug these in. 2 times 0 minus 3 times y-intercept equals 6. Okay, 2 times 0, cancel out. -3 times y-intercept equals 6. I'm going to divide by -3. And I end up with -2, meaning my y-intercept is located at 0, -2. Let's verify this. So -2 should be equal to c divided by b. 6 divided by -3 is in fact equal to -2. So there you have it. I want you guys to go ahead and work on these questions just to make sure that you understand them. Remembering that my slope is change in y over change in x. So for example, here I'm going to go down some number, right some number. My y-intercept is where it touches the y-axis, and my x-intercept is where it touches the x-axis. See you guys next time.